everyone, welcome back to the channel and thank you for tuning back in. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Layla, the Lenormand reader, and today we are doing another card combination video. So we're going to pull out two cards and look into what the two cards mean together, and then we're going to do a few triplets. So let's go ahead and fan out the deck and just draw two cards randomly and see what we get. Oh wow, this is pretty. The Road and Key. So what is the Road? The Road can be one of those cards that doesn't really mean anything immediately. I've recently had a student tell me on one of the calls that this was one of the cards that she didn't feel she can associate much with. The Road is about change, mainly. It's also about crossroads, so arriving at the proverbial fork in the road, which means that there can be choices ahead. The thing about the Road is that it's also a little bit open-ended, so it points to adventure. It points to the path ahead without really a clear destination. For a destination, we would need another card to tell us if we actually arrive somewhere or if we're successful. So the Road can be a little bit open-ended in this way. When it comes to people, the Road tends to represent people who are not really settled anywhere. They sort of wander around life. And in relationships, it tends to point to someone who is not really committed. Of course, it depends on nearby cards, but on its own, the Road tends to point to these things in this way. The Key is a lovely card. It is all about success, achievement. It's obviously about unlocking, having the key in our hand, being able to unlock doors and open up opportunities. The Key is really good with intelligence. It's also one of the spiritual cards of the deck, at least in my dictionary. It has to do with a sense of destiny, and not as much as the Cross and maybe not as much as the Tower, but it does have that sense of spark, that it brings guidance and it helps us move through. It's very good with intelligence and being able to problem solve, and achieve solutions, find a bottom line, find a common ground. The Key is great with these things. So when we get the Road and Key, a number of things can come through. It can mean that we actually arrive somewhere. So we were saying that the Road is open-ended, but the Key brings success. So that would be a bit like the Sun, the Clover, other achievement cards, especially something like the Anchor. There's a sense of arriving or on achieving the right result. The Road and Key can also mean that we've made the right choice. It can also mean that we're on the right track and that we should keep on going in the way that we're going because it will lead to results. So I think any way you look at these cards, these two cards together, there is this idea of success, achievement, and of being on the right track. Now, if the Key were before the Road, I think we would have pretty much the same indications. I think that because the Road is open-ended and it's on the right-hand side of the line, it can mean that you are on the right track, but maybe you don't see the results just yet. There is that sense of pursuing what we know is right and going after what we want. For those of you who are just catching up, I usually read from left to right. So the story unfolds from left to right. So that's why the order of the cards, when it matters, would be in this order, going from the left, the earlier parts, to the right, the later parts. Of course, it doesn't matter always. And it's also up to you how you like to read the cards. That's totally flexible. It depends on your system. What matters is really that sense of consistency. Okay, so the Road and Key. Let's go ahead and get into a few triplets. So I'm just going to pull this card here. Oh, lovely. I was thinking about the Anchor earlier. The Anchor is about arriving. Okay, so unlike the Road, unlike the ship, the Anchor is really about arriving and landing and being, anchored down. So it's about being in a location. Similar to the Anchor is the house in that sense. The bear is also very strong in the sense that it stands its ground. And there is also the mountain that can be a bit solid in this way. But the Anchor is very clearly about arriving. And in this case, the order really matters. So you see we've got the Road on the left-hand side. So we travel down this path. It is the right path. And then we arrive to our destination. I also think because of the key, it is arriving at the right goal. So this is very much a combination of goal achievement, of success, of landing on the right solution, finding the right solution through the key and anchor. And also with the road earlier, it's important to keep on going, to keep pursuing the solution until we actually find it. And because of the anchor here, it's very clear that we do. So this is a really, really pretty triplet. Looking at these cards in different contexts, just to jog our interpretation, I think it would do well in just about any life area. So when it comes to work, it is great. We might have made a change on the job and we arrive at a different one. In relationships, there can be a common understanding, perhaps things we're not exactly on the same page, but then with the key and anchor, we come to the same conclusion. We're on the same page. We agree. We resolve differences if there were any. What else? When it comes to money, it's also a really good combination. I think with the road in here in the context of money and possibly also in the context of relationships, because the road is unsettled, it's important through these cards to find a direction and settle on it. So make a choice and settle on it. And I think this is very clearly coming through the road and anchor. The thing about the key, it's lovely. It tells us that we're probably going to make the right choice. We're going to land on the right solution, and we are going to settle in the right way. So in the way that will help us achieve our goals. So any context you look at these cards in, they are really supportive and they suggest achievement. They suggest that we're able to get over any sense of wobbliness or hesitation and find our ground. So a very powerful set of cards, really. Now, just moving these cards around, it would have been a bit different if, for example, we had the anchor, key, and road. So the anchor comes earlier here, so it can mean that we actually pick up and leave, because the road is on the right hand side. And remember, I read from left to right. It might depend on how you read as well. The idea that the anchor is earlier can mean that that the road is on the right hand side, because that's what's important. We pick up and leave. And the thing about the key here is that it's encouraging. It might be time to sort of change our ways a little bit. Maybe that's also what's coming through. The idea of being a bit more flexible, a bit more open. The anchor can be a bit rigid. It can be a bit restrictive. We normally need negative cards to suggest that, but still, it doesn't have to be just strictly negative. It can mean that it's about being more open, changing things up a little bit, being a bit more flexible, not so rigid or stuck to the same ideas or the same situation that would be represented by the anchor. The key is great for all around brightness and resourcefulness and, this idea of ambition and also intelligence. So I really feel here that this can be a change of perspective, trying to look at things in a different way and to be more open-minded about certain things. They can certainly come through this lovely combination. Okay, let's look at another triplet. So we had the road and key, was it? I forget, but it doesn't really matter because we're going to switch them around anyway. So let's go ahead and pick a third card. Lovely. The heart. So the heart is going to bring up emotions and feelings and possibly also less tangible things in life, like an inner world, the inner side of things. And it's nice to see it with the key because it can also bring up a deeper sense of insight, inner awareness can be represented by the key and heart. But of course, the most obvious way we would read the cards is in terms of love and relationships and feelings. So with the key and heart, this can be about unlocking someone's heart in a very, very straightforward way. With the road here, this can mean that there is an opportunity to engage in this relationship. So this is where we see things like, or scenarios like, the interest is revealed. So you discover that this person likes you or they're interested. This can be someone or a relationship that you pursue. It is definitely worth exploring through here. So the road and key is very much about exploring this relationship. It probably turns out to be really positive and supportive, and so it's a good idea to pursue it. The key and heart is lovely any way you look at these cards. And it doesn't have to be just about relationships, of course. The heart tends to be about feelings and love and compassion, but it can be about happiness and fulfillment. And with the key, I really see this coming through. So it's very important to make the choices that make us happy, make us fulfilled. And there is, I think, a dash of intuition that comes in here. The key is very much a rational card. It has to do with intelligence and finding solutions, but it also has a character of mystery and spirituality. And so with something like the heart, I feel that we're able to be really aware about what we want. And with the road, it's important to make choices that support us, that we really want, to really pursue the things that turn us on. This is what's going to make us happy. And this is also what's going to put us on the right path. So I think this would be a really powerful triplet for that sense of inner purpose and inner happiness in not so much a day-to-day way, but a bit deeper than that. Let's shuffle the cards around a little bit. We've got the heart, road, and key. Let's say I don't see it being very different. It can mean a change of heart. That is possible. When it comes to relationships, the road tends to be associated with the end of a relationship. But I think that it's really impractical to be strict about this, because it's a neutral card, first of all, and second, it depends on other cards as well, precisely because it's neutral. So the heart and road can mean that there's a change of heart, or perhaps there's a change in a relationship, and with the key, we have the assurance that it's actually the right one. But it doesn't have to, right? Like, I would say that it would be the end of a relationship if we had something more negative, because then that would give us the proper indication or the proper hint that something is falling out in here and it's time to make a change. And making this change is actually the right thing to do because of the key. But still, it's possible. And of course, it depends on the context. So depending on the question, it can support it in this way. Otherwise, I think the line can be just like we read it the first time around. Pursuing what makes us happy is what's going to lead to success, what's going to lead to results. I think it's also important to have an open heart, an open mind, and to really look at things a little bit differently. So again, I feel that it's similar in pretty much any way we shuffle these cards around. Here as well, the idea of unlocking a heart, unlocking potential, and really exploring these feelings, and this sense of passion, compassion, whatever this interaction is, whether it involves another person or it's an inner dynamic that's playing out here. I think it looks really nice in here. And I think that any way we look at these cards, it's going to be the same. Okay, let's move on to a third triplet. Let's see, how about this one? Let's put it in the middle. Okay, oh, a fox. A bit of a different dynamic here. The fox is usually a bit challenging. It can suggest a person, someone who's obviously two-faced, not really transparent, very clever, self-interested. But when I see the fox with the key, I tend to bring out the positive aspects of the fox. So what are these aspects? Being smart, being clever. And also with the road, I feel that we have a bit of a snake energy here, a bit like the snake, where it seems like the indirect approach is what's going to lead to success. The key at the outset can also mean that you've got what it takes to manage a tricky situation. And it can also mean that you're best moving away from it. So, with the road on the right-hand side, it's like you're leaving behind the fox. And with the key here, you're encouraged to do that. So it's important here to be focused on your own goals and to release what is in your way. So I think the fox can indicate that. But I also think the fox can come to your advantage, mainly because of the key. So the idea of really putting yourself first, being self-interested, letting go of people who don't support you, and just really doing your own thing. Like with the fox and road, we see that it's time to do your own thing, or you need to do your own thing for the time being. And the key here can also bring up the idea of solutions, perspectives, looking for the right answers. So this can all be highlighted through the key, fox and road. I think, though, that the fox and road can cause a bit of trickiness. Like there can be some unknowns down the road. It's not like we have the key on the road, like if on the other side of the road, on the right-hand side. Because if we had it on the right-hand side, it's like we read it the first time around, we arrive at a certain solution. But when we have it at the outset, the road being open-ended and on the right-hand side, it can mean that we need to be ready for a phase when things are not really known, not really clear. It can be a time of searching, but it can still be an enjoyable phase. The thing about the fox is that it really draws our attention to alertness, being aware, being able to do things like reading between the lines, going beyond appearances, just being really clever and thoughtful about things, especially with the key. And like I said, I do feel that the key brings out the positive aspects of the fox. Now, suppose we did something like this, the key, road, and fox. So here, because the fox is on the right-hand side, we can meet a tricky person down the line. I don't think it's entirely different from what we just read, but it can cause a bit of a complication here. So it can feel like we've gone down the wrong road, like we maybe thought that we were heading in the right direction, but then we meet with some kind of challenge. I think that's not my favorite interpretation. I think the key is more powerful than the fox. What I mean by that is that the key is more positive than the fox is negative. So I feel that the key can overcome any challenges suggested by the fox. But still, it can be a bit of a speed bump or, someone who tests us, and if that's the case, then we're probably going to do well. Another way to look at these cards would be, for example, if we switch this around, finding the right solution. I think in this case, there's a bit more of an indication of letting go of a challenge just because it's behind us, it's on the left-hand side, and we're able to move in the direction that works for us. So there's that possibility in this order. And also if we did fox, road, and key, it would suggest that. But it can also suggest what we said earlier, that we need to put ourselves first and pursue our own goals. And that's what the fox can be suggesting. So I think any way we look at these cards, I think they remain positive, because really it's the interaction between the key and fox that I feel really helps bring out this clever aspect of the fox. So I feel it comes to our advantage more than it presents an obstacle. And even if it did present an obstacle, the key being so positively bright and, being a card of success and being able to fix things, through our smarts, I feel that it can neutralize the fox pretty easily. Now, in the context of work, this can mean a new job. This can mean success on the job. In this case, I think there can be some nuances when it comes to the order of the cards. So if we had the road in the middle or at the right-hand side, it might be the right time for a job change or making some changes on the job. I would see it this way. In relationships, it can be a bit tricky. So if we're specifically focused on relationships, the fox is always a bit of a concerning card. But the thing about the key is that it can either help us understand the person, get on the same page with them, so come to a common conclusion, or it can mean that we're best moving away from them. And it can also be about being prepared about what kinds of people are around us. So the fox would tell us that you don't want to share everything up front. You want to be more observant. You want to be clever and diplomatic. There's no need to, be fully transparent when the fox shows up. And especially with the key, like I said, it brings out the positive aspects of the fox. So they come to your advantage. This idea of being clever, of being a smart talker, of knowing your boundaries with certain people, having a sense of sensitivity around, different types or in a specific situation. So I feel that the fox can be really useful in these ways. So in my mind, I don't think the fox, and even most most other negative cards, I don't think they're always necessarily negative. I do think they can have a positive side that comes out depending on nearby cards. This is something that I talk about in depth in the course. Like we look at how, depending on the strength of the card, you know, how it's brought out by other cards, if it's as it stands, whether it's positive, negative, or neutral, and you know, how it's affected by other cards. So, like I said, I feel that when you switch the order of these cards around, I don't necessarily feel that it makes a difference, even across the different contexts. I would like this line with money. When it comes to money, I think the fox is really clever, has business acumen, you know, very smart. So I think that this is about making the right decisions. But the fox is also a trap. So it's possible that something is up. But again, the thing about the key is being able to see through that and to disentangle ourselves from it through the road. So really, any way we look at these cards, they are really, really positive. It's really the key and road that is a beautiful combination here. And we saw two beautiful cards and the tricky fox. So this is it for this card combination video. Let me know how you like these interpretations. Leave me your thoughts. Tell me if you're looking at them differently, or if you have additional ideas that you can share with others. I'm sure other people will also benefit from your perspective. It's always interesting to see how different Lenormand readers read the cards. So thanks so much for tuning in. I am looking forward to our next tutorial video together. And until we meet again, take very good care of yourself.